Okay, let's get to our panel. Joining us from San Francisco is David Lee. In addition to teaching political science at San Francisco State University, he serves as the executive director of the Chinese American Voters Committee. Also with us is Imam Talib Shareef from Masjid Muhammad, a historic mosque here in Washington, D.C. George Lujan is a communications organizer with the Southwest Organizing Project in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Thomas Holbrook is the department chair and a professor of political science at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Let's start with Thomas in Milwaukee. And Thomas, how important is this immigrant vote in the forthcoming election? Could it, in a very closely fought election, tip the balance?
Well, it's hard to say how much difference the new immigrant vote could make, because even though there's a substantial increase this year in terms of raw numbers compared to the American electorate, it's still fairly small. But the growing immigrant citizen population overall, that is not just new citizens, but people who have been naturalized over the past several decades, that is increasingly a Democratic bloc of voters and increasingly concentrated in a few states, a few key states that are battleground states. Florida, for example, North Carolina has a growing immigrant population, citizen immigrant population. In these battleground states in particular, this voting bloc, which is increasingly Democratic, could be very important.
Talib, could we say with any degree of confidence, I mean, we listen to the polls and what they tell us, we listen to the election rhetoric, that most new immigrants will be voting Democratic?
I have a population, just for example, of about 30, maybe 40% immigrants. And of course, that's probably one of the most diverse populations because they're from different places in Africa,
right.
Talking about Nigeria, Senegal, et cetera. And most of them are leaning, obviously, Democrat because of what they're hearing really concerns them from the other side. Despite the fact that, we hear that many of the immigrants who come to this country also have conservative values, do they not lean towards Republicans in any way? Yes, they have. But again, this particular cycle, because of what they're hearing, really concerns them, because of the relationship that they have in the country and also with those with ties or those back home as well.
George, the polling company Latino Decisions tells us that Hispanics will be a very important voting bloc in this election. What are the major issues that Hispanics are focusing on?
Well, when it comes to the election and to issues of elections and civic engagement, I think we're trying to create a system that's more reflective of the communities that we come from. So we want to have the healthy public discourse on all of these issues. There isn't like a magical serum that the Hispanics drink that makes us all think the same thing. We have a lot of different ideas about any issue you want to talk about, but the bottom line is that the government that we have is not fully reflective of our communities, and we're electing people that are not reflecting what our values are. So anything from women's rights to global warming and the future of the planet to food access, food sovereignty, and these systems that are really damaging people, and all the different ways that the modern industrialized world is hurting communities of color. Those are the big issues that that we need to talk about, that any presidential nominee or anyone else needs to talk about, from the school board and city council on up.
Right, but certainly I guess the immigration debate must be resonating with many Hispanics right now.
Well, I can speak as far as in New Mexico. We have families and communities that have been here in this land for hundreds of years, for generations. At one time it was known as Mexico, and currently it's known as the United States of America. And so when you talk about immigration, you have to consider that historical legacy of what that actually means, where people were disenfranchised in their own home, made to be a stranger in their own in their own land, and it's sort of a process of reclaiming that. So, we really have to challenge that idea that Mexican people are coming in to assimilate and become Americans. The place where I live, which you can see behind me, we have a very special culture here, a Chicano culture that combines a lot of different people from a lot of different places. So when we need to kind of get away from the frame of people coming to assimilate into this democracy that we have, because we really need to transform this democracy, and we need it to assimilate to the people that it serves.
Right. And let me go to David. David, Asian American voters have not turned up in very high numbers in the last election. That was the election in 2012. Only 47% turned out. Do you think that's likely to change in this election?
Absolutely. In 2012, Asian Americans were about 8 million nationally. Now we're up to 9.3 million, a significant growth in 4 years of 1.3 million new voters across the country. In key battleground states such as Nevada and Virginia, Asian Americans are over 10% of the electorate. Asian Americans are excited about this election. They are invigorated. We are registering record numbers of voters at immigration ceremonies. The rhetoric from Donald Trump and from the Republicans, frankly, scares a lot of Asian Americans, and many have become citizens because they are fearful that a Trump presidency may mean the loss of freedoms and benefits that they enjoy today as residents of the United States. So more and more people are becoming citizens, registering to vote, and getting involved. And I think we're going to have very high Asian American turnout nationally in this country, and particularly in the battleground states of Nevada and Virginia.
Right, and Thomas, if we look at how the voters, how it breaks down from the one party to the other, if we look at the recent election cycles, are Democrats getting a bigger and bigger share of the vote in those states that we've been talking about, those battleground states?
Sure. Yeah, and in fact, if you look across the last several decades, the states where Democrats have improved their position the most, including those battleground states, are also states where the naturalized population has grown the most. The states that David just mentioned, Nevada, Virginia, throw in Florida, New York, New Jersey, some of the states that aren't battleground states. These have been growing increasingly Democratic, in part because of the transformation of the population over time. And part of that, a very important part of that story, has been the increased size of the immigrant population.
And Talib, if you are sitting there as a Democrat election organizer right now, there's a problem that you're facing right now. As we've been reporting, as many in the media have been reporting, many people are immigrants are trying to get citizenship in time to vote in the next election. But the Obama administration itself tells us that in many instances that's not going to happen because we have a huge backlog.
Yes.
An admin backlog. We're not going to get there.
Yeah, that certainly is a challenge. In fact, one of my members just recently, they've gotten citizenship, but even he's just getting it. So, but he's not going to be able to vote even in this cycle right now. We have many in the pipeline, as you said, and that is a challenge right now because we're not finding a way to expedite that, backlog that we have.
And do we have any idea of how many people will get there?
I haven't heard any numbers on terms of how many we're going to be to get out of that pipeline, but we know it's quite a bit because, again, they're very anxious about getting in this election and voting.
And just one other thing that we talked about earlier when we look at who's voting for whom. I mean, as you pointed out, most people will be voting, most new immigrants will be voting for the Democrat Party. The color of immigrants has changed in this country. Say, if we look at the 1970s and we look now, the 1970s was mostly white. Now it's mostly people who are not white.
Yes, and that's certainly the case. Again, having three identities here at the panel here, being a religious identity, being Muslim, being a racial identity, being an African American, and then national identity, being American. The religious identity is where we have a lot of diversity, and that color is coming from different parts of the world. The Muslim community is probably the most diverse in America right now. Right. And of course, they are really waiting because they're very concerned. They don't know what's going to happen. So they want to get in this vote, get in the race to vote.
George, President Obama has tried to get immigration reform in this country. He's failed with Congress so far. And in fact, one of his executive actions that he took also failed in the U.S. Supreme Court when they blocked his move to try and get a pathway to residence for about 5 million undocumented people here in this country. Do you believe that that is going to be an important issue? It will be back on the agenda, whomever becomes the new president?
Yeah, I believe so. Immigration reform is something the country has needed for a long time, and it's going to be an issue beyond, I believe, beyond obviously the election cycle and whoever gets elected. It's something that has some deep-rooted problems in the country, and it takes a long time to fix things, that are like that. And it goes far beyond as well. Any office, like the office of the president or any other office, requires a lot of work on the ground. It's very uplifting to hear about the work organizing that I'm just hearing right now within the Muslim community, the Asian American community. In this election we have coming up, we're going to have more women, people of color, black and brown, Native, Asian American, all of these groups of people. There's going to be more engagement in this election than we have ever had in the history of the country. This is about as close as we're going to get to having an election that is reflective of the populace. And that's something to be really excited about. So there's a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric that's been touched on in this election that we get from a lot of different places. And it's something that our communities have to deal with on a daily basis that is horrible. But at the same time, there's a lot that we can feel proud about. We have communities here that are building a new country right now, and this election is just a part of that. And but we have leaders that are out there every single day, whether it be students and teachers, farm workers, small business owners, young people. All of these people are our leaders that are kind of leading us into this brave new world here in the country. So I don't think anyone is waiting for the immigration reform for us to address the problems that we're having in our communities.
Right, David, when we look at the Asian American vote in the United States, there was a really interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal not so long ago which pointed out that if we look at the Senate, the U.S. Senate election in the state of Virginia 2 years ago, it was Asian Americans that put the winner, which was Mark Warner, over the top. How does that look if we expand that, if we extrapolate that nationally?
Well, if you look at a state like Nevada, where the Asian American population is growing very rapidly, it's in fact one of the fastest growing populations in that state, as it is across the country, you can see a day in the near future where Asian Americans may outpace African Americans and other groups, established voting groups, as influential not only in state politics but in national politics. We're seeing the same thing in Virginia. There's a large Asian American population in Virginia. They are becoming activated, registering to vote. And guess what? Over half of them are registering as Democrats. Only about 12% are Republicans. So the Democrats enjoy a wide margin over Republicans, and that's because the Republicans are driving Asian Americans away with their anti-immigrant, anti-ethnic rhetoric. We're seeing activism at San Francisco State, where I teach, reminiscent of the 1960s, where we're seeing young people from all colors, all races, getting involved in this election. Young leaders who are organizing clubs, who are getting people to vote, who are out at immigration naturalization ceremonies, registering people to vote. It's really ignited an entire generation of millennials who are invested in this country and want to have a say in this election. This is happening at the same time that nationally, Asian American organizations from New York to San Francisco to Washington, D.C. are working together collectively to register our community members to vote, to educate them on the issues and get them out to vote on Election Day. And this is such a critical time for everybody. It's just palpable in the air. There's such excitement. People want to be heard, and they want to send a loud and clear message to the rest of America that what's important to us is what's important to the country. We want the right to pursue the American dream. That's why immigrants have come to the United States for a better future. We're not here, we are here to be part of the American dream. And I think so many immigrants in this country feel marginalized and feel that the rhetoric from Trump and the Republicans have left nothing for us in the Republican Party. And that's why they're flocking to the Democratic Party right now.